So, cause I don't know why I haven't thought about it. I know I've talked about it, like with the short videos I've seen you do for like birthdays where people do the compilations of the 5 things that, that
was the first video editing I was doing.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's a lot of fun. And I think that there's a lot of value to that. Like when you think about, and I don't think you even have this on your website.
Oh gosh.
But like if somebody was going to say, hey, we want to give something to somebody that has everything, right? Like they don't need anything, but I want to give them something unique and special to do a video montage of the people that love them, talking about them, both serious and funny and in a entertaining way that you can condense it down to a 5-7 minute video. Like super impactful. Like I know everybody that got the videos that you did loved them.
Yeah. And from a technical perspective, they were not good videos.
No, I mean, looking back at what you produce now versus what those were.
Oh my word.
They were kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like, you'd probably fire yourself if you did it now.
Oh my word. I would have been livid with what I was turning in.
But it was fun. And it was,
they were the highlight gifts of every birthday. And we did them for like a half dozen people.
Yep.
And like, they were terrible time sinks because I spent like 100 hours on each video just trying to figure out how the programs even worked. But then you get to turn it into, someone who's living halfway across the country that you haven't seen in 2 years, because that's just what happens when family goes to university. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we just had another family moment. That's actually memorable.
Right. Right. No, I think they're super powerful. But, and so I think, I don't know why I didn't think about this, but like with my mom, she's turning 80 this next year, like having her come in, sit down, and tell the story of her life would be so powerful. And I think I'm going to have to connect with you afterwards to get that set up, because think about my kids. My kids are all old enough. Most of her grandkids are old enough to know her. Her great grandkids though, do not. No. And a lot of them may not get to have that relationship to know her. But I think in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they go, yeah, who was great grandma Melody? Right? Like that's cool.
And like, God willing, they'll have memories that last with her in the person.
Sure.
Yeah. You always want that, but sometimes things don't always go the way that you plan. That's the story of life. And so why not take the opportunity and have something that's preserved, something that will be timeless?
Right. And even if you have those moments in time, like on our last episode, I was talking about the voicemail I have of my dad.
Yeah.
That's a moment in time. Like, and I have memories of my dad, but there's still something about being able to go back and listen to that voicemail and just be like, okay, yeah, like I heard his voice. Right. And that's I have a note, like my first Bible that I had that he gave me, I was 8 years old. And, he wrote on the inside of the Bible and is like, a little note and then a bunch of passages that were important that he thought were important. And so that's precious to me. The Bible has fallen apart. I kept that inside leaf because it's awesome that he wrote me this note. It's great to go back and go, oh yeah, this passage was meaningful to my dad. And then just kind of read it through again. So those are great. But reading his handwriting is cool, but it doesn't encapsulate him as hearing his voice, which is different than when you go back and watch an old video that catches him. So like just even how much more where we have a video, you could put together a video where your audio is high quality and then the conversation is intentional.
And we were talking about this last episode as well. And it's one of those really small human intricacies, but it's like humor. How many forms of humor can you convey through a note? You have a lot, but it's still more limited than when someone's actually speaking. Just the way that they say the words that they have, the pauses, the breaks, the thoughtfulness. There is so much more weight.
Oh, for sure. I was watching a lady on Instagram the other day, and her whole thing is micro expressions, and just how like just a small twinge in a face on the certain parts of your face and what that's signaling to other people. And the part that's funny is like, we pick up on it. We don't realize that we're doing it, and we don't realize we're picking up on it.
Yeah.
But that's why they say like 90% of communication is nonverbal, because so much of it just happens naturally, that we're giving social cues and picking up on social cues in a way that's not even conscious.
Yeah. Well, this is my linguistics background coming up a little bit. But as you may mention, the majority of human communication is in body language. But after that, you're still not getting to semantic word values. You then actually get into the innotation of the words themselves. Like the way that you say hello can have a million different meanings. You know, you have hello versus hello. Different vibe, different meaning. Then you have like connotations where the different word choices that you have, they might have equivalent semantic value, which is to say, if you look them up in a dictionary, they mean the same thing. But there's a different connotative value, which is what they're implying. You go down 4 or 5 levels, then you finally have textbook definitions of these words and what they actually mean. And when you're passing on notes, they can still be beautifully valuable, but you're missing 95% of the message just by the nature of the medium.
Yeah. I know this hasn't been a focus of your business, but I think on a personal level of the value that brings, it is something that you should think about adding that in as a tab to your business. Cause I mean, it fits right with what you're doing.
Yeah. I was at a house party on Sunday and someone made a flippant remark, and cause they were a sibling, I was going to be a little bit crass and demean them, but I got thinking about it like, oh no, it's actually a really good idea. I know a few people who might be interested. And so that's how those conversations started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's valuable. It's valuable for more than just the business that we promote, like different businesses that you might promote or whatnot. So
no, and that's why there's this one fella. I'm not sure about what his character is really like. His name's Patrick Bet David. He's like an Iranian immigrant, or like the child of Iranian immigrants, went into the military, went into insurance. And then on a side, he started doing media stuff just because he kind of liked it. He liked teaching and all that. But then eventually he realized that, one, there was a weirdly higher roof for revenue in his media productions than there was in his insurance company. But that's just because he was kind of capping out, and media is infinite growth, hypothetically. But he also just enjoyed it more. And he got to have these really neat connections with people. You got to meet super interesting people. And so he just decided to sell off the insurance company, went totally into media. And there is an artistic capacity to it that is really fulfilling to some people.
Yeah. And the artist side of it definitely makes a difference, right? Like we talked about that in the last episode about angles, about lighting, about how you put something together can capture the moment in a different way than just a snapshot of the moment.
Yeah. There's a great filmmaking trick where if you just take a static shot where you're shooting, again, we use a vase just flat on, you have it on a shelf. It conveys no emotion. If you shoot that vase shooting up, or it's even more effective when you're shooting a person and you're looking up towards them, it gives that person a sign of authority, of power. You shoot down on them, makes them look small, makes them look inferior. And it's all these small things that come together to make a video that's really compelling.
Do you think that's why people, when they're doing presentations, stand on a stage? So they get to look down on you?
Well, it's, I heard a rumor. I'm not sure if it's true, but one of the reasons why there's an upcoming debate, you might have heard them, between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And one of the ideas was that Kamala Harris wanted to make an adjustment to the debate coming up in September where they had to sit down. Because if they're standing, Donald Trump has 6 inches to 12 inches in height on her, and it makes her look small.
Oh.
And who wants to vote for someone who's smaller than the other guy? No, because I like the big guy. He's going for the big job.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm not sure if that's actually the case. Maybe there's a really thoughtful reason. Like one of them's got bad ankles. I don't know. But yeah, no, it plays into it.
That is interesting. I hope, I don't know. This is just, I'll dive down this rabbit hole just a little bit. I hope they stay standing, not because I want to see height difference, but like to me, like if you can't stand up for a 2-hour debate, maybe you shouldn't be president. That's just a thought. Like, yeah, I don't know. The debates are funny to me in so many ways because I know like they say they matter. I just don't see how they really matter though. because I mean, most people I know who they're voting for before the debate. There's never in no debate. So I've been paying attention to politics since George W. Bush, and I didn't really pay attention before that, but that's when I really started paying attention. Paid a little bit of attention through Clinton. I remember when Ross Perot ran, but I never heard anybody go, I don't really know who I want to vote for this November, but I'm waiting for the debate to happen. And then after the debate go, well, I was pretty undecided, but this person made some really good points, so I think I'm going to vote for them. And now I know they must have some sort of influence because they do them. But to me, I'm always like, does it really matter?
Yeah. The only debate that seems to have mattered was the most recent one between Biden and Trump, because for obvious reasons, Biden's not running anymore.
Right. That debate didn't matter because people were going to go, like, it wasn't like the content of the debate mattered. It was just the fact that people realized, oh, Joe Biden really is senile.
Well, and that's the thing. It's been an open secret that people have all known. But the moment you have them on stage in front of the camera for an extended duration of time, because everyone kind of knew that Biden stumbles over his words, but you know what? He's an older fella. Fair enough.
Well, and some people do that, right? Like I know people that have like sharp as a tack, but they stumble over words.
They just have an off moment even.
Yeah.
And it makes them look embarrassing for, a 60-second clip it. But all of a sudden you have this person on that stage for 60 to 90 minutes and you see everything. To kind of pull back into our previous conversation about the body language, the connotation, the intonation, how they're saying words, or the words that they're struggling to say entirely. It just conveys so much of the person. And America, I think, kind of realized at that point, like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So maybe what the debate reveals isn't so much like, oh, I think this person has better points than that person, but the debate helps reveal who the person is.
Which is interesting because the moment Biden dropped out, one of the attack lines going against Donald Trump was, oh, he's the old guy now.
Right.
Does he have the strength? Can he actually go up on stage and keep up with the young, spry 60-year-old Kamala Harris?
Right. 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 I know and I think I don't know, some people disagree with me. I think asking the age question is important. It's not though about a number. Age is a number. It is important though to understand, like, because I mean, I see this all the time. My mom, like I said, my mom's 80 and there are people who are 60 who look older and are more frail than my mother is at 80.
Yeah.
And there's, and my wife's grandma just passed away. She was 99. She was just shy of her 100th birthday. And she was so energetic and so like sharp all the way up to the end. But she made some 70-year-olds, like her boyfriend, I think was like 75, right? Yeah. And he looked older than she did.
I did the video for her celebration of life, and you guys had a video of her dancing the Charleston at 90. Was she 99 at the time?
She was 99 at the time. Yeah. That was just after her 99th birthday.
She dances better than I ever did.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, like age matters, but at the same time, it's not so much the age of number, but as people age, how have they aged?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between one person at 70 and another person at 70.
And I don't know, so many of my clients, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, they've been disproportionately older, which is odd because it's a media business. You would have thought that it would have been a whole lot of young guys that are kind of narcissistic, but no, it's these older folks that have a lot of stories to tell. And there's so much to say, and it's one of the last things that they can do as they're getting up in years. Like returning back to the one fella who was doing the history documentary with me, 80 years old. He's not exactly out there, jumping out of planes. He's able to garden, which is kind of crazy for his age because he's bent over backwards half the day, every day. But what he can still do really well is tell the stories.
Right. No, some of those older people, like they have a very captivating storytelling presence. And I don't know if it's just practice, if it was a better art at the time because they didn't have YouTube back in the day. So like but they're very good at telling a story. I do have to just like go back 1 second there. Are you saying that I'm an old guy then?
You're older than me, so I guess gosh. So. Yeah.
We're gonna have to end this interview now.
Yeah.
No, it is something. The older people have good stories and they can tell them well. I think what you're finding is your younger people have, right or wrong, have the idea that they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
And so they don't see the value of hiring a professional. But I think that and the older people, they recognize, they're like, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. There is value to professionals. I think I've told this story before. So if you guys remember this from probably at 5 or 6 or 7 podcasts ago, my old boss or my old district manager in insurance, he was out painting his office, and it was middle of the day. It was hot, and he'd been painting it for like 2 or 3 days, and he was not very far into it. And this older, it was an older guy. He looked like a homeless bum. He said, came by, and he was like, "Hey, you're doing that wrong." And he's like, "What are you talking about? You don't know anything. Leave me alone. I'm painting it." And he's like, "No, you're painting it wrong. I'm a painter." He's like, "I'll tell you what, for like $1,000, I'll paint your whole building and you'll be done." And he's like, "I'm not paying you $1,000 to paint my building." He's like, "Well, you're going to be here for at least another week." Yeah. And you're doing it wrong anyways. And so he left. Next day came by. He's like, "You're still doing it wrong. $1,000, I'll paint the building for you." And he's like, "Fine. I'll pay you after you paint it though." And he's like, "Fair enough." All right. So he paints the whole building, and he's like, the guy did it in like a day. He said, and it looked way better than the stuff that he'd been doing. And he realized at that moment, he's like, you can make a lot of money if you stay focused on what makes you money. Yeah. When you get distracted and try to go into every little nook and cranny and be an expert on everything, you don't make as much money because he could make more money doing insurance and managing his territory than what it was going to cost him for a week of time was more than $1,000. Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think like, oh, I can do it. Sure, you can. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet. You could figure it out. But how much time is it going to take you to figure it out? And how much is it going to cost you to get that same quality as if you just hired a professional to do it for you?
Yeah. And any business 101 leadership development course, if it's worth it, so will make the point of saying, capitalize on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. Shore up the boat so that you're not sinking, but don't devote so much of your time to something that you're not actually going to become proficient in. And for a bunch of kids that are learning how to do media, more power to you to learn. I mean, this wasn't something I was planning to do. I've picked this up a lot as I went along initially, which is great. And it testifies to how accessible media has become compared to 20 years ago, which is great. But like to put this podcast together, we're using like 3 different platforms, and we're using, God, I could count it all here, probably about $6,000 worth of equipment I could think of just off the top of my head. You could do that, or you just say, hey, the videographer's got the cameras. He probably either has the audio equipment or knows the guy that has the audio equipment. I'll just contract them out for $200 for the day. And there you go. You got a podcast. Or you go to a studio and you do it at half the rate. I don't know. So there's real benefits to just finding someone else to do it, because I would love to do it for you. I don't know. That's my soft pitch, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good pitch. There's so many people that start podcasts, and I know people who go out and they'll even say like, "Oh, I'm buy the equipment and then I own it and I'll just do it." And I know people that do that, and unfortunately the quality of what they produce is mid to low range. They're getting their message out, but I think the part that really kills their podcasting is how much back end work. Yeah. Right? If you have a podcast, I want to tell a story, right? Or I have something I want to share with the world. And then I have to spend all of this time. I spend twice as much time or 3 times as much time getting it all put together and then posted up than I did just doing it. Like the fun part was doing the podcast. The back end side is not it. Like I knew that. I've known that. I've been in business for 19 years, 2005. by 2008, I knew I needed to get into video. So I'm probably 12 years behind 16 years behind the schedule of getting into video. But the reason I never really got into it was because of that. Like I knew like just making the video is one thing, but then figuring out how to make it look decent and then getting it all uploaded, I was like, it's just, I don't have time. I don't have brain space for that. And so I just didn't do anything. Whereas here, the nice part is I come in, I sit down, we do our podcast, and then I say, thank you to my guest. We get up. I walk out and you'd make the rest happen.
Yeah. We'll do all the post-production. We'll do the editing. And it's one of those things, like you make a good point, where the easy part is buying the equipment. You can get $10, $15, $20, $30,000 worth of equipment. You can get the best stuff out there, but your audio is still going to sound like crap if you don't know the basics of Adobe Audition. If you do not know how to go through your EQ, how to get out your low frequencies and to kill off your sibilants before they get too high. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, well, then you got a learning curve ahead of you. And that's going to take a good long while to figure out. And you could do it, again, if you're running a business and you find that you do have the time and it's worth the investment, then go for it.
The question is then, do you have the time? And I think this is the part that people get hung up on. If you're new in business, you usually have more time than you have money. Because you're like, I'll just work 100 hours a week and it'll be fine.
Easy. Yeah, fine.
But I don't have the money to invest the $10,000 into the equipment. Once you get more established and you go, okay, my cash flow's here. I have the money, so I could just go buy the $10,000 of equipment. Now the problem is I don't have the time to invest to make my podcast and my media look good. So yeah, I think we've covered it in the fact that if you want to do media, you really need to get somebody to help you with it because you'll look more professional. It'll impact people. You have a story to tell. Let somebody help you tell that story.
Yeah. And there really are a lot of people who are able to step into those roles. And there's a ton of videographers that exclusively do weddings. And I don't get that. I don't get that at all. Because one, I think weddings are entirely too stressful. Way too many demands coming on you all at once. But it's a lot of the same gear, a lot of the same mindset. If there's no one who's running a media production studio, just go to one of the videographers and say, hey, I got this project. Would you be willing to try something new? More often than not, they'll say yes.
Yeah. That's a good idea. So before we close, I didn't do this in our last episode, so I want to do it now.
Oh, yes.
I know you have a young son.
Yes.
What is he, 9 weeks?
I think he's going roughly on 11 in 2 days.
Oh, boy. If there was something, because I ask all my guests this, something that you could tell him, that the most important thing that you would be able to tell your children, your grandchildren, that you would want to pass on to them, piece of information, knowledge that you would impart, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I know. It is one of the hardest questions.
Yeah.
Remember to be thankful, I think. That's a good one. And that's one that sometimes when you're always on the go and you're trying to figure out how to just make it to the next day, sometimes it's good just to remember that you've made it to today. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Be thankful. So wrap up from the last 2 sessions, because I didn't do this at the end of last time. There's tons of opportunity in the media marketing. People need media. If you have a business, you have a brand, you have a story that you want to tell, that you want people to know, you need the media production. If you have a story of life that you want to preserve, that you say, hey, I want to, just like I just asked you that question, and you say, hey, this is something I want to pass on to the next generation and future generations, you need media production. And then be thankful. Yeah. Like those are the things, those are my key takeaways. And then I think afterwards, we're going to have to talk more about, I want to make one with my mom. Yeah, I think that'd be a great project. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this different format here of a second look, I guess, of a little more personal rambling and getting to know Kole a little bit better. Yeah, trying a new format. Yeah. So let us know what you think of it. Send me an email at theagentinsider@gmail.com. And it's Berzenji Media Productions.
.com.
BerzenjiMedia.com.
Oh, BerzenjiMedia.com.
Yeah.
That would have been long. Or just Google Podcast Studio Lyndon, Washington, and you'll find him. So thanks so much, guys. Until next time, have a great day.